It's not always based in reality. I feel like media and journalism have a responsibility to tell the stories, and a lot of times, like, you guys are the ones controlling the narratives about what.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to the channel. So the WNBA media, people like Monica McNutt, Janae Ogwumike, David Dennis Jr., Chris Simpson, and so many others who cover this league every single day, they have to be feeling the pressure right now. Over the last couple of weeks, they've been getting called out from every direction. First, it was Caitlin Clark during All-Star Weekend, and now Sophie Cunningham has stepped into the conversation as well. If you've been following everything that's happened recently, it's hard to ignore just how much criticism the mainstream WNBA media has been receiving. For the people who cover this league on a daily basis, these last 2 weeks have been rough, really rough. Every time it seems like the conversation is finally going to shift back to basketball, another player comes out and points to the same problem. And today, Sophie Cunningham didn't hold anything back. She openly criticized the way the WNBA media covers the league. Now, let's be clear about something. Sophie Cunningham isn't foolish, she isn't stupid, she isn't dumb. She knows exactly what she's saying. And she understands the difference between national media outlets and media members whose primary responsibility is covering the WNBA. She understands that when a major controversy happens, national news organizations are naturally going to cover it. They're going to ask questions about stories that go beyond basketball, because that's what big news organizations do. As Brianna Turner has said before, sometimes those stories become bigger than basketball. But that's not who Sophie Cunningham was talking about. She specifically pointed toward WNBA media, the people who travel with these teams, the people who attend practices and games, the people whose job is to explain what's happening on the court and help fans understand the basketball itself. According to Sophie Cunningham, that's where the problem begins. Instead of breaking down games, discussing strategy, highlighting great performances, or explaining what fans are actually watching, too much attention is being placed on everything except the basketball. Day after day, the headlines become about controversy, social media arguments, off-court drama, or topics completely unrelated to what happens between the lines. That's the criticism Sophie Cunningham is making. She isn't saying those other stories should never be covered. In fact, she acknowledged that those stories have value because they help fans learn who players are away from the game. They allow people to connect with athletes on a personal level. But in her opinion, the priority has become completely backwards. As Sophie Cunningham said, the WNBA media, all we ever do is cover everything except basketball. You can talk about other things. Those are great stories. It shows fans who people are outside of the court. But I think we gotta keep the main thing the main thing. That quote says everything. She's drawing a clear distinction between national media covering a major news story and WNBA reporters whose primary responsibility is covering the league itself. Her message is simple. If your job is to cover basketball, then basketball should remain the main focus. Whether people agree or disagree with that opinion, it's certainly a conversation that has the basketball world paying attention.
So much good going on in the WNBA. I think that basketball is being played at the highest level it's ever been. I think our team in specific, we are breaking history right now with the amount of points that we're scoring on back-to-back games. I think the Minnesota game, there's just so much distraction. I think the WNBA media, all we ever do is cover everything except basketball. And it's like, what are we doing? There's so much, you can talk about other things. I think those are great stories. I think it shows fans, who people are outside of the court. But I also think we got to keep the main thing the main thing. And I think when it comes to the Minnesota game, I think there is so much distraction. But the matchup between Miles and Kelsey was phenomenal. Our team, that game in particular was a great game. And so I think that there's a lot to be said, and I'm going to let people just do the speaking for themselves. But for me, I want to get back to basketball. It's always been about basketball. That interview happened in February when I was asked a question. And so for me, I just want to, make sure that it stays, the focus stays where it should, because people are playing at such a high level. We have probably 3 MVPs that could be MVPs on our team specifically. And so that's why I want to do that.
Thank you for elaborating.
Yeah.
You talked about all the distractions.
Yeah.
What is your, and one keep the main thing the main thing. What is been your approach? Like, how have you seen this team kind of grapple with that, where you are playing some of the best basketball that you played all season, playing at such a high level?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to penetrate that bubble. So how do you focus on keeping it tight?
Yeah, I think that's how it's always been in the W. My first 6 years, I was with DT and Brittany Griner, and so that causes a lot of buzz on your team as well, and so you just have to protect the locker room. And then when you come here, it was like 100 times more. And so last year, I think we had a lot of preparation for what distraction and outside voices could do to a locker room. And so this year I think we're used to it. We're tight in the locker room. We try to protect those walls like no other. We try to protect each other like no other. And so I just think that when you have this platform and everything you do is just magnified by 10,000, you kind of get used to it. And so this team, everywhere we go, every team we play, it's their Super Bowl. And so it's nothing new for us. And when you join this team, it's just something that you have to expect and you have to know going forward, like all eyes are on you 24/7.
You talked about doing the interview back in February. Is this kind of reaction something you expected, or the distraction something you expected?
No, I was asked a question, and that's simply what it was. I just wasn't making a statement to make a statement. And so I was trying to clear the air, and I did that back in February. And so it is what it is. And like I said, we're in the middle of season. I'm going to keep it that. We talk about a bunch of distraction. Our team is good. My teammates are good. Our locker room is great. And so now we're just here about to prepare for Las Vegas, and that's where our mind is at.
Not that hearing news would be new for any player, but is that from a basketball perspective? Is that something that crosses your mind at all, hearing them everywhere you guys have gone in this trip?
No, and you know what? I think college really prepared me for that. There was different environments that I was placed in that every time I touched the ball, anytime that I was even near the ball, there was booze, and so there's nothing new. And honestly, I think people think I'm freaking out or hate that. I love that. That is sports. That is what rivalries and competitiveness is all about. And so when other people come in and complain about environments, I love that. That's what sports is. And so, it is what it is. And I'm here. I'm fine.
Caitlin's game this season, and just the expansion specifically in the mid-range, what have you seen from her and just her development, health aside?
Yeah, I think she's just starting to get in rhythm. I think our team overall is starting to get in rhythm and feeding off each other pretty well, especially when we share the ball. When we have 5 to 6 people in double figures, we win. And it's when the ball stops moving. And so for her in particularly, when she's moving that ball and getting her assist, I think that's when we're at our best. She's always going to get hers. Kelsey is always going to get hers. AB is always going to get hers. We know that. It's more about getting everyone else involved. So it makes it easier for them to, do what they do. And her mid-range game is elite. I think everyone's always known that, but you can really see it on display this year so far.
Talking to another coach, Mike, kind of a basketball question, but what was your conversation with Shara like before that last game?
Oh yeah, she just came up, and I respect her for coming up in person. I think a lot of people hide behind screens and love that type of thing. She had stories about her point of view, and I had stories about my point of view, and we left with love and respect, and I think that's what it's all about.
Now, listen this very carefully. Caitlin Clark said something very similar about the media.
I think a lot of it is it's not always based in reality. I feel like media and journalism have a responsibility to tell the stories, and a lot of times you guys are the ones controlling the narratives about what people read and what people talk about, and a lot of that is sometimes so far out of touch with what is reality, and that can be confusing to somebody that's 24 and trying to navigate life and trying to help her team win a championship.
All right, let me address one question that I've been seeing everywhere since this interview started making the rounds. The interview itself happened back in February, so why did they wait until now to publish the article? Why sit on it for months and then suddenly release it in the middle of the season? I've got 2 logical reasons that immediately came to mind, but I want to hear what you think as well. Drop your opinions in the comments section below, because I'm sure there are other theories out there. The first reason is pretty straightforward. If you're publishing an article centered around a WNBA player, it makes perfect sense to release it during the WNBA season, when interest in the league is at its highest. Publishing it in February wouldn't generate nearly the same amount of attention. During the season, fans are already engaged, games are being played, and people are actively searching for WNBA content every single day. The second reason stood out even more to me. That article was released on Monday, the exact same week Sophie Cunningham's signature shoe was scheduled to launch on Friday. That's not a coincidence, in my opinion. If you've got a player profile ready to go and that player has a major product release coming just a few days later, why wouldn't you use the article to build momentum and create publicity? Now, trust me, I love criticizing ESPN when I think it's deserved, but this actually seems like a pretty logical marketing strategy. You don't think Sophie's representatives or her agent may have said, "Hey, we've got a shoe release coming later this summer. Can we hold this interview and publish it closer to that launch?" That wouldn't surprise me at all. Again, there could absolutely be other reasons. Maybe you have a different theory. Maybe you think something else was happening behind the scenes. Let me know in the comments, because I genuinely like to hear your perspective. Now, let's move to the bigger issue Sophie Cunningham was talking about. This is where WNBA media has to look in the mirror. Let's be honest. Articles that simply recap games or break down basketball usually don't generate the same level of traffic as controversial stories. That's just the reality of today's media environment. When a story starts trending on social media, when debates explode online, or when controversy begins driving engagement, that's where the attention shifts. If you're working for ESPN, The Athletic, The New York Times, or another major outlet, your editors are watching those numbers. If one article suddenly takes off and brings in huge traffic, chances are they'll ask you to write another piece on that same topic. If it keeps producing clicks, they'll want more of it. So in some ways, that's just how modern media operates. But here's where the criticism comes in. When people like Monica McNutt, Chiney Ogwumike, and others say the conversation needs to focus more on basketball, they also have to recognize that they're part of shaping that conversation. If consistently controversial segments replace basketball analysis, then it's difficult to complain later that nobody is discussing the games. At the same time, it's fair to acknowledge they're also doing the job their employers expect them to do. Media companies want traffic, views, and engagement. That's how the business works. When a topic performs well, management often encourages more coverage of that topic. Sophie Cunningham's comments have also generated another wave of criticism online. Some people are claiming she started this entire controversy. Others are saying she has no right to complain because she created the situation herself. I don't see it that way. Sophie Cunningham answered a question she was asked during an interview. She gave her honest opinion. She didn't randomly create the discussion out of nowhere. ESPN conducted the interview, published the article months later, and put those comments into the public conversation. Once the article went live, everyone else reacted to it. Whether you agree with Sophie Cunningham or not, saying she single-handedly started everything ignores how the interview actually became public. What's been surprising is seeing not only WNBA fans, but even some Indiana Fever fans turn against Sophie Cunningham over these comments. The reaction has been far more divided than many people expected. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you think the timing of the article was intentional? Do you agree with Sophie Cunningham's criticism of WNBA media? Like the video, hype the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.